Hello ladies and gentlemen, how are you? I hope you're all good. So, in this video, I would like to give you a little glimpses of facts about the compare and contrast between these two countries. The Southeast Asian most populous country, Indonesia, and a small landlocked European country, Austria. I know, right? I know quite a lot about the huge gap of differences between these two. But as a quick disclaimer, I am an Indonesian and I spent the entire of my life here in Indonesia with the languages, Indonesian languages and cultures and so on and so forth. And Austria is the country that I want to live in the most, sort of. So that might add up to the reason why I made this comparison video at the first place. I know, they are really far and really different, but there might be a little similarities than you'd expect, and I'm trying to be as objective as possible. So, with those being said, let's jump right into the differences. So, to talk about the differences between these two countries, of course, we couldn't live about the politics of these two countries. So, first, the politics of Indonesia. Indonesia has shifted through so many political systems since its independence day at 1945. Its latest period is known as Reform Era, which began after the resignation of the authoritarian President Suharto in 1998. This prompted into a major governmental reform which include the four constitutional amendment and several new laws that shaped the current political structure. Some of the important changes including the limiting president to 2 terms of 5 years office and establishing a direct popular elections than a parliamentary one, and reorganizing the government model into a separation of powers, and greater emphasis on the decentralization of power into the local administrators. The politics in Indonesia take place in the framework of the presidential representative democratic republic, whereby the president is both the head of state and the head of government, and of a multi-party system. The political system in Indonesia separates its power into 3 government branches: the executive, legislative, and judicial. Each is given certain power by the 1945 Constitution in order to check and balances the other branches, meaning each branch can limit the power of other branches to ensure that none can overpower the other. Austrian politics take place within the constitutional framework of a federal parliamentary republic, with the president serving as head of state and a chancellor as a head of government. Governments, both local and federal, exercise executive power. Federal legislative power is vested both in the federal government and in the 2 chambers of parliament, the National Council and the Federal Council. The judiciary of Austria is independent of the executive and legislative branches of government. So, those are the difference between the politics of these two countries. Of course, both of them are really different in politics, in the political system. So the next differences between these two countries is the climate. So first, the climate of Indonesia is quite entirely tropical, and the uniformly warm waters ensure that the temperatures on land remain fairly constant. And the main variable of the climate in Indonesia is not temperatures or air pressure, but rainfall. And the winds here is moderate and quite predictable. While in Austria, the weather conditions vary only slightly across the country, the southeastern areas of Austria have longer and warmer, almost Mediterranean-like summer, but in the areas with the mountainous region and the alpine climate, they have the alpine climate, so it causes the winters to be colder than the lower altitude, so it's really cold in the mountainous region. So yeah, those are the difference between the climate in these two countries. Of course, they are really different because the regions just really far. One is in Southeast Asia, one is in Europe. Yeah, of course. This difference is from the religion. Of course, they are really different. So as in Indonesia, In Indonesia, all citizens are required to register under one of six recognized religion categories: Islam, Protestant, Catholic, and Hindu, Buddhist, and Confucianism. And as we all know, Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world, with 87% of the citizens are all Muslims. While in Austria, about three-fourths of Austrians are Christian. The overwhelming majority of Christians are adherents to Roman Catholicism, while the Protestants and the Orthodox Christians form the smaller groups. The next difference came from the language, of course. So first, in Indonesia, the one thing that kind of unite all the Indonesian people is the language, the Bahasa Indonesia, which means actually Indonesian language. So Bahasa Indonesia is kind of the lingua franca to the most of the people, but most of the people in Indonesia speak their own native language, their own native tongue, and as well as English. And Bahasa Indonesia took quite influence from the Dutch colonial times, so there are so many words in Indonesian dictionary quite have the same words with the Dutch dictionaries. And Indonesia itself has a lot of native languages. Indonesia has almost 300 native languages, so it's really massive. And while the Austrians speak German, but the Austrian German, even they have their own dictionary, and also there are quite a lot of dialects in Austrian as well. So yeah, those are the difference of languages between these two countries that are really different. So yeah, that add up to the differences between the comparison of these two countries. And yeah, the next is the similarities. So first of all, Indonesia is the world's largest archipelago nation, located right where the Indian Ocean meets the Pacific Oceans, with total of 17,300 islands spread all over the country. Well, basically Indonesia is the paradise. Wow. In terms of location, Austria is landlocked by 8 other countries. Over 60% or 3/4 of the total area of Austria is covered by the Austrian Alps in the west and in the center. These mountains give Austria a breathtaking paradise-like landscapes also. So basically, these two countries are having those similar landscapes with the mountains, the hills, and the plains. So yeah, why I choose this as the similarities between these two countries. But now, if we talk about the similarities of the geography, the landscapes, or the overall the landscape similarities between these two countries, yeah, they both have abundant historical buildings or heritage in the country. If Indonesia and Jakarta have a monument, the national monument, then in Vienna has a lot of churches like St. Charles Church, St. Peter's Church, and that one in the middle of the city, the St. Stephen's Cathedral. But in Indonesia, especially Jakarta, has also the largest, the most magnificent, the huge mosque in the Southeast Asia, and that is the Istiqlal in Jakarta. And as we all know, that Austria is heaven because of its castles, such as Castle of Hohenwerfen, the Hohensalzburg Castle, and the Belvedere Castle, Belvedere Palace. Actually, I don't know how to pronounce them, and so many of others. But if you think that only Austria has so many castles and palaces, no, Indonesia has also so many kind of them. Like the Royal Karton Ngayogyakarta Palace, and also the historical heritage like Ratu Boko Temple, the largest Buddhist temple, the Borobudur, the church-shaped the chicken-shaped church in Magelang, and also the Maimun Palace, the Sacred Monkey Temple, and so many other stuff that I suppose not gonna fit into the list today. And also, there are so many Dutch colonial style buildings all over spread in the country because of the colonial times, of course. Yeah, I think those makes the similarities between the historical heritage between these two, I guess. And the next, with over 400 mountains and 150 active ones, making Indonesia as the most volcanically active country in the world, and thus it's creating some of the fertile land on the planet. And ones of the famous are Mount Bromo, Mount Merbabu, Mount Kerinci, and also Mount Rinjani in Lombok. And if anything, Indonesia's volcanoes, both active and extinct, are back to be explored. And luckily, there are countless of superb hiking trails running up and down the flanks of the mountains. And it's no surprise that Indonesia is the a dream. That's kind of a dream destination for the hikers of the rock climbers. Yeah, there are countless of them. I'm telling you. It's really magnificently beautiful. And for the Austria, of course, we couldn't pass the Grosslauner Road. I don't know how to pronounce that still. A super famous swirly road, and also known as the High Alpine Road and the Hallstatt. The entire city is just plain gorgeous. And overall, these two countries has a beautiful, really incredibly beautiful sceneries, and both have a lot to offer. So the next one. Actually, I don't have no idea why I come with such idea to compare about this, but superstitions. Well, as an Indonesia, I know that many of the people in Indonesia always think with the perspectives of superstitions. But guess what? And so does Austria. So, like we all know, in Indonesia, when someone is moving to a new house in our like close neighborhood, they would usually held selamatan. It's a communal feast from Java that's symbolizing the social unity. And yeah, maybe that's influenced by the Islam religion, because in the selamatan there is some prayer times and feast, of course. But in Austria, there is also this habit or this tradition when people move to a new house or a new neighborhood, they would be given bread and a salt. I don't know why, but that is actually the tradition there. So yeah, maybe there is this kind of similarities of doing something when you moved to a new house. And the next thing is about marriage. So in Indonesia, there is the superstitions when usually told by the members of our family when we are together, that you are going to marry a bearded man when you don't finish your cleaning. I know, right? I mean, it's always cracked me up because what is wrong with marrying a bearded man? So maybe this superstitions are born because they wanted, I mean, the relatives or family wanted us to finish the cleaning, finish our course, and yeah, sort of. And so in the Austria, there is this superstitions when in the old days it was considered unlucky to marry a man with a surname that started with the same letter as yours. So for example, when the girl have the surname with letter A, I mean started with letter A, she would be unlucky. She would be considered unlucky when she married a man with the surname, even though different, but with the same beginning letter. Yeah, does that even make sense? I don't even know why is that even wrong. So yeah, maybe those are the similarities, the superstitions. I just found that Austria also has so many superstitions, just like in Indonesia, and that's actually shocked me up. That's actually shocked me. So those are my hella long explanations about the compare and contrast between these two countries. And to be honest, as you can probably tell, I love both of the countries, my country Indonesia and the Austria. And I hope this video might be useful somehow. Somehow, yeah. For you, especially when you never been to Indonesia, I suggest you coming here. And I also wanted to go to Austria as well. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Please take care, keep your health good, and don't forget to wash your hands. And yeah, bye.